right, we have 10 o'clock. Phyllis, I'd invite you to call the meeting to order.
Good morning, everyone. I am calling the meeting to order. Welcome. So I assume that we have a quorum, so we're good with that. Yeah. All right. Well, this is a first, and we've had a lot of firsts in the last couple of months. And I think we've gotten through all of them thus far well. I think we got through the first cancellation of our annual conference. I want to thank everyone, particularly Faye Green and her team, who helped us manage the transition to this format for this meeting and the cancellation of the conference and everything that attended that. I want to thank all of you for supporting that decision. I want to thank Jill Harrington for single-handedly pulling together a program of COVID-related conversations so that we had content as that crisis really took hold. So in addition to firsts, today is also a day of lasts. This is my last official duty as president. And as we know, endings come and they're not always the endings that we would have anticipated or would have wanted. But as we often tell ourselves and others, the end is not all. We also want to take into account everything that happened before the end. And that is what I'm thinking about today. And that's what I want to bring to your attention because this year has been a very full one. And particularly the last month, your board has worked very hard. I want you to be aware that during the last couple of months, the board of directors met at least once a week, more often twice, and with many phone calls in between. But even before that, it's been a full year, and I want to bring some of our accomplishments. Oh, here we are at one of our many board meetings, and I want to bring some of what we've done to your attention. One of the things that I want to point out is that, we've made progress on a number of fronts. Some of you will remember that some time ago, we developed a strategic plan for our association. And the idea in developing a strategic plan was to have goals that could be carried out and worked toward over a period of presidential years, rather than having a year-to-year agenda that was largely formulated and announced by that year's president. So we set out at the beginning of the year to reconsider that document, to reconsider some of those goals, and to re-engage in working toward those goals. One of these was strengthening communication with members, ensuring access to member services, and another was having more of a public presence. Some of you know from the letters that I've sent you on a monthly basis that we have made a number of things easier for members. Membership renewal, credentialing, accessing journals, volunteering, contributing, webinar access, you will soon find, has been completely revamped. The new system provides instant access to webinars that you've purchased. And it also enables you to go directly after you've completed the webinar to taking the exam for your CEUs. You don't have to go to another site or another screen. So that's quite a bit of progress. We've also made our website easier to navigate, and we've had some of the best attended webinars in the history of the program. Under the editorship and with the support of the editorship of Helen Chappell and Heather Servati Saib, with help from programming with project development from Worth Gilcrease, we are well on our way to finishing the third edition of the Handbook of Thanatology. It's a huge book, and this one has some features that really build on previous editions. We've amplified our voice on social media. And again, this is largely to the efforts of our association and your vice president, soon to be your president, Rebecca Morse. In all of these areas, whether it's the website or our voice on social media, something that was very important to the board was to ensure continuity in these initiatives, the sustainability of these initiatives. In other words, we didn't want to have something like an increased presence and then have that disappear when the person who had undertaken to do it moved out of that position. And what this means is the development of policies and procedures. You can't have sustainability and continuity and as well as consistent work toward strategic goals if you don't have policies and procedures that undergird them. So we've worked very hard on that. It's not the most glamorous work, but it's very important work. And as a result of that work, we now have a comprehensive strategic communications plan, one that Rebecca Morse was very involved in helping to develop, and one that she will continue to work toward and advance during her presidential year. We have a financial operations policy, which involved a tremendous amount of work by our outgoing treasurer, Bill Hoy, and our incoming treasurer, Worth Gilcrease. And this is another example of how we have really endeavored to have not just policy and procedural continuity, but also continuity in leadership. We have a revised association code of conduct, which was developed in response to the need to ensure that all members of ADEC and all attendees at ADEC meetings are properly and respectfully treated. These policies are all available to you, and it's my sincere belief that all of this is important work that will contribute to the strength and the growth, and again, the forward vision of ADEC. There's a lot more to be done, and the next person who's going to be picking up the baton to do that work, Rebecca Morse, I know is up to that job. So what I'd like to do in closing this brief statement is to thank sincerely all of the people who have helped me this year. I want to thank all the members of the board. A special shout out to Heidi Parker, who is not visible because she continues to exercise her very labor-intensive function as acting as secretary in addition to her other roles and responsibilities on the board. I want to thank all of you for stepping up, for making promises and keeping them, for staying true to your oath of office when things were difficult and confusing. I want to thank you for joining me in moving toward and through the unknown and navigating through it. And to all of you today and always, I want to thank you most sincerely for the honor of serving as your president this year. So thank you very much. And we are going to, with that, move on to our executive director's report.
Thank you, Phyllis. It has been a pleasure working with you this year, and I've appreciated every moment of it. And I know Rebecca will have a few things to say in closing and thanking you, but I want to take the opportunity to thank you. We've had frequent meetings. Phyllis, you've been the first president I've served with in my tenure from beginning to end. You know, I came in partway through Lewis's, so this is my full run, my first full run with the ADEC president, and It was a pleasure. I appreciate the hard work that you put in, and particularly how invested you became in the development of the management HQ team, particularly in your lot with a lot of transition, and your desire to see them develop and grow, and not just to meet the needs of ADEC, but to really develop and grow as professionals and your concern for them. So I appreciate that. So thank you. Let me give a few pieces of just informational updates on some numbers, and then just make a few comments, and we'll move on to Bill's treasurer's report. I've got reports on annual attendance for a few things. Webinars. Webinar attendance this year was down a little bit from last year, however, up from a couple of years ago. It's not a great variance in our overall trend line with webinars, but an okay projection. I would say that this is an area where we will anticipate seeing significant growth, and I know that the board has taken some significant action in the formation of a task force to respond to the COVID situation, to explore more options for virtual education. Like many associations and many organizations that provide educational opportunities, we find ourselves in a place where deliver of virtual content is our only real option. And so we'll see this, I'm sure in this next year, have a significant uptick, not just by virtue of the need for it on the part of our members, but that we will be investing significant leadership resource in developing programming. The piece of this that Phyllis alluded to that I think will also be a real game changer for the association is that on June 1st, we'll be launching a new webinar support infrastructure from a technology standpoint that will, one, make the purchase of recorded webinars very easy compared to the process right now. We, in the last year, made one set of upgrades to make that process easier. This next set of upgrades will be a monumental leap forward as far as the experience that you all as members will have in being able to go to the website, easily navigate the library of webinars that are available, purchase them, have instant access to them rather than having to wait for 24 hours, be able to take the CEU exam immediately following in the program itself, and then have those CEUs attached to your member profile within the ADEC website. It's going to be a seamless process that is phenomenal. The same will be true of the live webinars. They will be in the site, embedded in the site, so it will be an easier access process. You won't have to have a separate login in order to get in. You'll just use your login to get into the ADEC site to access the live webinar, and then be able to take the CEU exam immediately and have that attached to your profile. So we are doing everything we can in order to streamline the process. One of the things in my mind is I would love to see our customer service people taking fewer phone calls from ADEC members, not because I don't want them to interact with ADEC members, but because if ADEC members are calling, that means that members are struggling with something or not having an easy engagement with the process. We don't want that to happen. We want everything to be seamless so that people can have access to the things that they want when they want them. So we're going to see a big move forward in that front this year. Conference registration. This is the unfortunate reality of our situation, is that this report will forever have an asterisk on it when it comes to 2020. But given ADEC's field of focus, I think it will be a notable remark going forward in the history of it. So we saw this trend line is pretty erratic. It goes up and down. I think one of the things I expressed to the board and to our team is in addition to just the overall disappointment with having to cancel the conference this year, was that we were seeing really strong registration for this year's conference. And I think the conference planning committee had put together a phenomenal conference, and we were seeing people really excited about participating in it. We saw a really high attendance of people from Ohio who were interested in being connected, so a real high local engagement. So it was disappointing in that sense of we anticipated there being a really strong engagement in this conference. So we felt like we were turning kind of an overall kind of downward trend. We were starting to see it tick upward, so we were excited about that. But that's, you know, we cannot control that, and that's the situation we're in. But those are the numbers that we have. And then our overall annual membership. An exciting note on this is, to this point this year, we already have outpaced our membership for the whole of 2019. So we have seen this downward trend essentially since 2014, and we have started to see membership turn a little bit of a corner. You know, granted, a difference of 19 members at this point is not a huge uptick, but we still have a significant amount of the year left, where we hope to see some additional new members come in. And we do have a kind of a test pilot of a membership campaign happening right now to engage people outside of the ADEC kind of historic circle and try and engage some folks who may not be familiar with ADEC. So we're making some efforts there. So we have, those are the three kind of those are the three reports that I've got. Just a couple comments in closing. One of the things I'm really encouraged about that we've seen happen this last year is some solid intentionality when it comes to leadership transitions on the part of the presidential transition from Phyllis to Rebecca coming in. The transition from Greg Adams to Jolene Formini with chairing of the Credentialing Council, and the transition between Bill and Worth and the treasurer position. These are three really important positions within the life of the organization, all transitioning simultaneously. And to be doing that with intentional transitions is really important, because it has built a sense of both continuity and innovation, in that there is a sense of continuity in helping get those new leaders up to speed. And I think a incredible maturity and understanding of organizational leadership on the part of the outgoing leaders, of handing over the reins very willingly to the incoming leaders to empower them in the vision that they have for the association, rather than trying to enforce their own as they go out. So that's been really encouraging to see. And the other thing I would make note of at this point is, this is our third year as for Management HQ as ADEC's management company. I'll be having my second year anniversary here in July. And I think one of the things I would say about that is, we're at a point now where there is a solid familiarity with the association on our part in a way that helps us serve ADEC to thrive in more intimate ways. Our staff, particularly Mackenzie, who is our event manager, and I, we've been on for the same amount of time. We know a lot of you by name. You know, we've seen you at events. The sense of familiarity and knowing people is helpful. This year, for the first time with the LRDC, when it came to talking about recruiting people to fill the board positions or other leadership positions, I had actual thoughts because I knew people. So I am excited about this consistency that we're building, some improved continuity with staff that allows us to better serve, because there's this a greater stability. So it's an exciting point to be at, and also to be serving ADEC at this very important moment, where we have a historic event happening that ADEC just happens to speak to the needs of our culture and our world right now. And I am very thrilled for us as a management company. One of the things we take pride in is that we serve associations who do good in the world. And I'm honored that we as a management company get to work with ADEC at this point to help forward the mission that ADEC brings to the world in this moment of need. So we're excited about that. With that, I am going to turn it over to Bill to speak to the finances. Bill. Bill, you're muted. There you are.
Good morning or afternoon or evening, wherever in the world you happen to be at this point. So my report is partly reflection and partly numbers. You received in your email 30 minutes or so ago a complete financial report through the end of 2019. I will update that with up to the minute numbers as I go in just a little while. And I would encourage you to use the chat feature if you think of questions while I'm talking. I would encourage you to use the chat feature, and then at the close of my remarks, Isaiah will moderate the chat that has come in just to sort of forward questions on that I'll be happy to entertain from any of you who are watching. So, well, after reminding the board at every meeting for the last 3 months of my virtual countdown to today, 45 days, 8 hours, 12 minutes, 17 seconds, and the like, the day of my retirement as your treasurer has finally arrived. And honestly, it is bittersweet. Yesterday, these two beautiful bookends arrived here, a gift from our president and vice president, Phyllis Kosminski and Rebecca Morse. And in case you cannot see them, they are a bull and a bear, a very visible financial reminder to me of the ups and downs of the last 6 years. For those of you who pay attention to such things, the bull and the bear together are the ubiquitous symbol of the ups and downs of the U.S. stock market. Periods of uncertainty in the financial world have been a given several times during ADEC's 4.5 decades of existence. And so it has been for the last 6 years, and this year has been no different. Your finance team has worked tirelessly with me to keep a close watch on our spending and investing, making sure that we propose to the board a realistic, balanced budget, and then watching carefully over our income and spending to make sure that we stay as close to on track as is possible. Now, obviously, we can't ever accurately predict how many members are going to join or renew their membership, or how many participants will join one of our webinars, or how many people will sit for the credentialing exam or choose to renew it. And goodness knows, if this year were not proof, I don't know what is. We can never project what will happen with our conference attendance or the expenses that are related to that. And certainly uncertain financial times, budget cuts and upheaval in the organizations that our members are a part of, and the general economic sentiment have a strong impact on all of these issues. What I can tell you with absolute certainty is this: in spite of some very challenging and costly years, our beloved association is both financially strong and extraordinarily well physically organized today. As of the close of business Thursday afternoon, we had more than 6.5 months of expenses in the bank or in our various reserve investment accounts, making us a unicorn among the Fortune 500 and the envy of every nonprofit I know. Because of the watchful eye of your finance committee, who guides our investments, with the help of our investment advisor, Mike Ribich at Merrill Lynch, our investment reserve balances on April the 30th stood at $395,000, remarkably only 3.8% less than where we stood on December 31st. And I imagine that probably makes ADEC the envy of those of you who have seen 25 or 30% declines in your own retirement portfolios this year as well. We have plenty of cash to pay all the expenses related to the conference. Now, because every transaction has to be inputted manually, that is a time-consuming, labor-intensive task. The good news, however, is that we have plenty of money to pay all the conference expenses we incurred, and there were many, and pay back 100% of the registration funds paid in, and we expect to have that process completed in the next couple of weeks. We will use some of our reserves this year, but I anticipate that when all is said and done, we will still stand at around 4 months of expenses in the bank when the year ends, still putting us in rarefied air in the investment and financial community. Now, I would be lying to you if I didn't admit I'm tired. During these 6 years, we have replaced a management company, drafted and adopted a 32-page financial and investment policy document outlining the details of how we do business, worked with management to implement a transparent bill-paying process that requires the authority of the treasurer to pay every single expense. We have completely revamped the ways we do conferences, and we have worked together to keep expenses in line while not gutting our programs. Working with the able leadership of our Living Legacy Circle, ADEC has nearly doubled the corpus of the funds that we have in our named memorial endowments, with the promise of that much more to come, well, as soon as a few of you go ahead and die anyway. And this association, and especially your board, has provided incredible and unimaginable support to me through the adjustment of the life-altering injuries that I sustained 3 years ago that nearly forced my resignation from financial leadership of this organization. You've been there personally for me during these years as I've married off a daughter, launched a son to medical school, buried 2 parents, and said hello to our first grandchild. To say the least, it has been a wild ride. So I must say that on the whole, I am extremely grateful for this opportunity to serve. I am confident that I leave the Treasury in magnificently capable hands in the leadership of J. Worth Kilcrease, who has been a steady confidant and comrade in arms, especially over the last few months of transition. Thank you each for your concern and confidence that you've demonstrated all of these years. And I look forward to many, many years of collegial relationship and growth for our beloved association. Thank you.
Bill, there are no questions in the chat for you, but there is an abundance of expressed appreciation. At this point, if we're in person, there would be a standing ovation for you from our membership as a sign of gratitude and encouragement to you and to the finance team. So, so I will give verbal affirmation of the many senses of appreciation that are pouring in the chat right now. So thank you, Bill. The membership of ADEC is in your gratitude.
Thank you, I'd say. Thank you.
Thank you. With that, Greg, I'm going to transition to you for a report from the Credentialing Council.
All right, thank you. Thank you, Isaiah. And before we get into my report, just a word of personal thanks to Bill for his service, to Phyllis for her leadership in this past year for the board, and a welcome and thank you to Rebecca for taking on the responsibility for this coming year. You see the picture in front of you. This is most of our Credentialing Council that when we had our meeting in the fall of last year, and a couple people who are missing. And that represents just the council part, and there's really several dozen people who are involved in our committees that are part of the credentialing program for ADEC, who work really hard all through the year to provide the highest quality credentialing program that we can, and we were building on what we've done in the past, and we continue to build on that. And so we want to share some with you about that today. So first we'll share with you a little bit of numbers. So these are, this first slide looks at the applications for new credentials for CTs mostly, and also for FTs. Most of them, you'll see a big spike that we had a few years ago. That was when we had a temporary arrangement with a group in South Korea. And we had quite a few folks who joined us from there. Otherwise, you may notice that our ups and downs are not too different from the ups and downs of our membership, and that fits because the people who are most likely to seek a credential are people who are involved with ADEC. And we know that we want to first make sure that our credential is available to them and communicated clearly and well to people who are already connected to ADEC. But you don't have to be an ADEC member to have a credential. And we know that we have not maximized all the people out there who might be interested. So we've been working these past few years, especially now that, as Isaiah mentioned, we've had this partnership with MHQ for the last couple of years of trying to find ways to let both members and people in the field who aren't members of ADEC know more about the credential, and also make the credential one of the benefits that people have when they look at ADEC membership. So if we look at the next slide, we'll look at the recertification, and you'll see that that's pretty consistent over time, that we have 70 to 80% of our folks who have CTs who recertify. We would like that to be higher, and we know that part of that is because people are retiring. And so one of the things that we've done this past year is we have established a new retired status credential, where people who are retiring and the credential is important to them and they would like to keep it, but they're really not in a place to continue earning contact hours because they don't need that, and there's a financial burden of that, is that someone can continue to keep their credential in the retired status category, but they don't, and they can do that on an annual basis, so they don't have to commit for 3 years, they can do it year to year, and they don't have to earn the contact hours because they're in this retired status instead. And we're hoping that may fit quite a few people. Also, we have started surveying the people who have not recertified to try to understand better what their concerns might be. And we've even done some follow-up phone calls with people to try to better understand. And one of the things we found is that some of those folks are interested in our new retired status. And we're going to be learning some things as we go, because we want to both increase the reach to people who might be interested in their credential and hope to hold on to people who have gone through the work and the effort to have a credential. We've done a lot of work this past year, culminating a variety of efforts we've had in recent years of looking at how we can organize ourselves better and go forward doing the work of the credentialing program. And so one thing we did a real significant way in the fall is we took a big look, took a couple steps back and thought about what were major roles and tasks of the credentialing program, and how could we arrange our committees to fit those tasks. And so we did a major reorganization, and you'll see now how the committees look. We have an appeals committee for people who for some reason the system hasn't worked for them, or they miss a deadline and they want to have a consideration made for an exception. We have a group of people who are looking at who take the information from Management HQ and look at the applications for people who are wanting to sit for the exam and make sure that those meet all the criteria. We're establishing an audit committee, like many licensing groups do around the country, where you pull a small percentage every year to ask people to submit documentation when they recertify, and that's a quality control measure, and we're looking to do that. We established a communications committee because we want to not only look at the communications of how we communicate to the general public or the potential audiences for the credential, but we want to do better in how we can communicate to the people who are going through the process of seeking a credential and renewing their credential. And then we're looking at another committee that will be starting later about how we look at the people who get our credentials, what kind of practice are they in, and how can we make sure that our test and our exam matches up with the people's experiences that we're serving. And then we have a whole section of our program which we did not change, which looks at the exam, how we put the exam together in writing the items and putting the exam together every year and looking at the big picture for that. Then the other things we had, and you've had a communication about this earlier this year about some of the big changes that are coming into reality this year. And we're excited about that because a bunch of work went into that with our task forces and committees. But these are the highlights of some things that are happening and coming for this year. One is that we are fully transitioning into our new 4-track eligibility, which looks at people's backgrounds and their educational backgrounds. So you can qualify for the CT with a variety of educational backgrounds with adjustments for how much experience you make. And we've done that to broaden the reach of the credential while protecting the integrity of the credential. And we're hoping that that will be a positive in the years to come, especially as we reach out to other people who are outside the United States who have different educational systems. We've also looked at how people recertify. There were some kind of strange inconsistencies that we inherited between FT and CT recertification about what counted and didn't count. We systematically evaluated that, and we have a new system for that. And for the good news for some of you who are CTs and FTs, particularly for our CTs, there are more ways to get contact hours besides traditional education. There's similar to the FT, there are ways for that your service in the field can count too. And so there's that information, and all that is on the brand new website that ADEC now has, and that Management HQ has helped us to develop, so you can find all the details for that. I mentioned before the retired status credential, and everything now is going to go online, and this will certainly help our system, and it'll really help particularly our international member certificates. Some people are interested because having to mail in paper applications from other countries and the communication back and forth was quite the burden for people, and also a burden for us administratively. So we're really exciting that all of our applications and certifications are going online. I'm completing 8 years on the Credentialing Council and 6 years as chair, and it has really been a positive experience for me personally and professionally. I've met wonderful people, and I've never been involved with a group of people who is more engaged and motivated and collegial than the folks that I have had the privilege to serve with on the Credentialing Council. And I feel so good about the leadership going forward. Jolene Fermani has been on the council for 6 years. There is no one who is better prepared for taking on the leadership of this program for ADEC than Jolene. She's a wonderful person, and will be a great leader, and she understands more details about what we do with credentialing than anybody. And so I'll leave that in Jolene's capable hands. If there's any questions about credentialing that came through Isaiah, I'm glad to respond to those. But thank you for the support, and thank you for the support of the board for the credentialing program. And I'm really optimistic about the years ahead.
There's some appreciation and kudos for the credentialing work, especially around the new things coming in. One question is about CEU tracking. I think I might have a little bit more insight to the day-to-day of that. The CEUs will be tracked at the membership profile if they're CEUs completed through ADEC programs. However, it will still be the responsibility of the credential holder to report those CEUs as part of their application or recertification process. There is not an automated process for CEUs to be reported and applied in your application. It'll still be incumbent upon the certificate holder to add those to the renewal process themselves.
Yeah, thank you.
Right. Yep.
Isaiah, just one other comment I failed to mention that with the extraordinary circumstances that people are experiencing with COVID-19, there, for just this year only, there's going to be a different way, a little different standard of accepting educational contact hours for this year, because some people are getting them in some different ways. For instance, with our communication, our ADEC and conversation presentations, which are not offering official CEUs, but are certainly very educational. Details about that are going to be coming, but like a lot of other organizations, we are thinking about how we can be sensitive to what people are having to deal with right now, while still keeping on with the essential mission of our program. So look for those details to come about some adjustments about what will be required for contact hours that are earned in 2020 only. But that information will be coming out in the next month.
Thank you, Greg.
You're welcome.
Moving to the next item on the agenda, one of the issues that we needed to address as a result of the necessity of canceling the 2020 conference was question of the awards. Each year, ADEC grants awards to different individuals for different accomplishments within the field of death, dying, grief, and bereavement. And the decision was made to kind of twofold recognize those who will be receiving the award, who were granted the awards this year. First, we didn't want to delay those individuals from receiving their award or being recognized for their award until 2021. However, we didn't want to simply acknowledge them in just a virtual space, because there is so much involved in the recognition that involves personal recognition of congratulations among peers. So what I'll be asking Faye to do, Faye Green as the chair of the conference planning committee, is to give notice of those who've been granted the various awards this year next. And she will read through those. And the plan is that at the 2021 conference, we will do a formal recognition of those who are being recognized for the awards today, in addition to giving the awards to the 2021 recipients. So we will have double the awards recognition come 2021, but we wanted to recognize and acknowledge those who received the awards this year today. So Faye?
Thank you, Isaiah. Before we recognize the award recipients, I'd like to take a moment to thank the Conference Planning Committee. This has been a tough few weeks. And then Management HQ, the board, those people who were planning to present at the conference, and all of the members who were going to attend the conference. And so we appreciate the way that you've supported us. And now to the awards. Each year, ADEC recognizes professionals in the field of thanatology for their work. And that work includes contributions to the Association of Death Education and Counseling. I'd like to thank Alyssa Berman, who chaired the awards committee this year, and then those people who were on her committee, Patty Anawalt, Sherry Shatner, and Becky Watkins. Thank you for the work that you did so that we have the information for our announcement today. The Clinical Practice Award is an award that is given to an individual who has innovations in practice, dissemination of knowledge based on personal experience or research leadership in clinical practice as it relates to dying, death, and bereavement. The Clinical Practice Award for 2020 is Colleen Cherry. Congratulations, Colleen, for your work in this area and your contributions to ADEC. The Clinical Practice Award for 2020, the Research Recognition Award for 2020. This honors an individual with experience in the field of dying, death, and bereavement who has demonstrated ongoing, consistent record of research and publication in the area of dying, death, and bereavement, education, and grief counseling. So to recognize this Award recipient, Dr. Amy Chow. Congratulations, Amy, on receiving this award for 2020. The Ronald Keith Barrett PhD Scholarship for Diversity and Multicultural Presentations was established with a gift from the estate of Dr. Barrett so that his work in thanatology, his research and teaching of the diverse and multicultural approach to death, dying, education, and counseling will live on and carry out his legacy in the field of thanatology for generations to come. This award is selected from abstracts that are submitted to the conference for a presentation at the conference. And that presentation has to display diversity or multicultural sensitivity to rituals, traditions, and concerns in the field of dying, death, and bereavement, education, and counseling. Had we been in Columbus yesterday, we would have had an opportunity to hear Dr. Shannon Johnson and Patricia Galen Cisneros do their presentation, which was entitled Spiritual Change Among Homicide Survivors of Color. Congratulations, Dr. Johnson and Patricia, for the work that you're doing in this area and the work that you're continuing to do. The Edie Stark Shirley Scott Early Achievement Award is given as a result of two nurses who were from Florida, and they were very formative in the beginning of the early growth of ADEC. As friends and colleagues, these two pioneering thanatologists were passionate about good care for the dying and the bereaved. They were also dedicated to encouraging and supporting young professionals entering the field of work with individuals with bereavement and end of life. When Shirley died, ADEC was gifted with some funds from her estate that was channeled through the Living Legacy Circle. And after Edie's death, her family had memorials that were given in her honor or memory, and those were given to ADEC. So the Edie Stark Shirley Scott Early Career Award was created to help keep alive the vision of these two thanatology pioneers. The Edie Stark Shirley Scott Early Career Award is being presented for the second year to a woman in the initial years of a career in thanatology who has distinguished herself through activity in scholarship, service, research, ethical practice, or social action. So today we're recognizing Ashley Overman Goldsmith for the 2020 Edie Stark Shirley Scott Achievement Award. Congratulations, Ashley, and continue your work in the field of thanatology. The Academic Educator Award is an award that recognizing individual that has demonstrated excellence in academic teaching in thanatology. And so this award is where people have been recognized by peers, by a department chair, a dean, or a department in developing teaching materials, new courses. So this 2020 Academic Educator Award is being presented to Dr. Carl Becker. Thank you, Dr. Becker, for the work that you're doing in the field of thanatology. The Community Educator Award is an award that honors an individual with expertise in the field of dying, death, and bereavement. And that's demonstrated by excellence in community-focused teaching in thanatology by developing workshops, presentation, and teaching materials. So the recipient of the 2020 Community Educator Award is Hope Edelman. Congratulations, Hope, and continue your work as a community educator. The Lifetime Achievement Award is designated to honor an outstanding individual in the area of dying, death, grief, and loss who has had a national and/or an international impact on the field and has dedicated his professional life to the development and improvement of death education, caring for a dying person, and grief counseling. We're delighted to announce that Dr. Charles Core is the recipient of the 2020 award. Thank you, Dr. Core, for all of the influence and impact that you've had on the field of thanatology. There are 3 student paper awards that are given, and thank you, Carla Sofka and Kathleen Gilbert, for your work in reading approximately 30 papers from students and then selecting the recipient of the Student Paper Award for 2020. These awards were established with funds that honor the work of these individuals for which they're named. The Mary E. Brown Undergraduate Student Paper Award is awarded to an outstanding undergraduate paper that deals, of course, with the topic of dying, death, and bereavement. That paper must be a requirement for an undergraduate course at a recognized institution of learning, higher learning. So the Mary E. Brown Undergraduate Student Paper Award goes to Michaelina Falla. Congratulations, and we want you to continue your work in the field. Richard Kalish Graduate Student Paper Award is an award that's given to a graduate paper that, of course, deals with the topic of dying, death, and bereavement. And that paper was a requirement of a graduate course at a recognized institution of higher learning. This award is being given to Emily Ross. So the Richard Kalish Graduate Student Paper Award. Thank you, Emily, for your work in this field and on this paper. Dr. Hannah-Laura Wass Cross Culture Student Paper Award could be from an undergraduate student or a graduate student. And it had to be dealing with a topic relating to dying, death, loss, and bereavement, where the emphasis was on cross-cultural aspects. And this paper, again, had to be a requirement for either an undergraduate or a graduate class at a recognized institution of higher learning. So the Hannah-Laura Wass Cross-Cultural Student Paper Award for 2020 is Jonathan Heller. Congratulations, Jonathan, for your work on this paper and for the work in the field. Had we been in Columbus this morning, we would have had an opportunity to have heard these 3 people present their papers in one of the concurrent sessions. So the Conference Planning Committee, as Isaiah has said, will present these awards in person when we're in Houston in 2021 in April. I'm turning this over to Phyllis.
Yes, I am unmuted. Thank you, Faye. Can everybody hear me? Yeah, that's good. So just listening to the acknowledgement of awards that Faye has just gone through gives you just the tiniest particle of the work that's involved in putting together our conference. And I want to just read to you the description of the ADEC Service Award. This ADEC Service Award honors an individual with excellence in service to ADEC in consistent committee participation and other high-quality efforts to benefit the growth and development of the Association of Death Education and Counseling. Honestly, I can think of no one who is more deserving of this award, Faye, than you. I can't really say that what you've done over the years of your involvement with ADEC has been participation. It really has consistently been leadership. Again and again, you've stepped into leadership roles, and not the easiest ones either. Leadership roles that involve a tremendous amount of work. I know that the awards committee kept your selection secret from you for as long as they reasonably could. And I can understand why, because you don't do what you do for accolades. You do it for the love of the association, and that's very clear. Before you took on the conference committee, you were the chair of the professional development committee, and forgive me if I don't know the full history of everything that you've done, but I do know that you headed the professional development committee, which is a huge amount of work, but wanting to take on something that was even bigger than that, you agreed to chair the conference committee. Both of those jobs are jobs that it's sometimes hard to fill because of the amount of work involved, and you've taken on both of them. The conference committee job in particularly, and your work on the conference committee, Faye, is, to me, as a not so casual observer this year, has been stunning, which is to say that if I had to do what you've done this year to organize the conference, I would be stunned just by the amount of work that you have to do. So you worked diligently in that role. And I was saying to Bill, we were talking a little bit about the last year, last evening, and beyond anything else that's impressed me about you this year, what really impressed me was the way that you handled the decision that had to be made to cancel the conference. I figured if you could be accepting of that decision with as much grace as you were, that certainly the rest of us could do the same. You are unflappable, diplomatic, and diligent in your attention to every detail, large and small, relating to our most important annual event. It's been a real privilege to work with you and to be able to observe what you do closely. So I want to thank you, Faye Green, this year's winner of the ADEC Service Award. I look forward to being able to give you a hug when we are together next year in Texas, because we know that Texas never closes. And I want to thank you for everything that you've done for ADEC. Congratulations, Faye. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Phyllis, and thank you, ADEC, for allowing me the opportunity to serve you.
Thank you, Faye. All right. So, Isaiah, we are next going to move on to the acknowledgement of retiring board members. Am I right about that? Yeah.
As always, Phyllis, you're right.
See, this is why Isaiah and I get along so well. All right, so this is going to be brief, much briefer than either of these individuals deserve, but hopefully when we do get together in Texas next year, we'll be able to extend these words of thanks to two people who have done such phenomenal work, not only during their extended years of service, but they've also done an incredible job. And I think that Bill's remarks and Greg's remarks, I think, make it abundantly clear that in addition to serving in their roles for the past 6 years, they've also done a tremendous amount of work to plan for the future and to ensure that the future, in Bill's case, of our finances, and in Greg's case, the future of the credentialing program is strong. Bill, you have skillfully shepherded ADEC through 6 years of up and down, and you've done it with a degree of grace, humor, and patience that's truly rare. I can honestly say that I cannot imagine how I would have gotten through the last year without you, but especially the last month. And so on behalf of everyone at ADEC, and I know that I speak for everyone when I say that we are tremendously, tremendously grateful for your service. Although your role as the treasurer of ADEC is ending in just about 10 minutes, I look forward to many more years of working with you, many more years of knowing you. And personally and on behalf of ADEC, thank you. Thank you, Bill, for being by my side this past year and for your friendship always. Thank you. Greg, I think that again, in listening to the words of Greg concerning the credentialing committee and the work that's been done this year, I hope that you have a sense of what has gone into the work on that program this year. And as well as, and this goes again for Bill as well with Worth, and I think Isaiah alluded to this, but particularly in the case of the credentialing program, this is a complex program with a lot of moving parts. The Credentialing Council this year was in the process of making a lot of significant changes and moving forward on a number of fronts. And all of that was done with the collaboration of Greg and Jolene, who's going to be taking over that role. And I will just echo Greg's remarks about Jolene. The program I know is in good hands. I feel like your retirement from the board, Greg, marks the end of an era. Under your stewardship, the credentialing program has grown to a robust and vital program within ADEC and a resource for the profession of thanatology as a whole. It's been a genuine pleasure getting to know you this year and to observe close hand how you approach your work and your life with hard work, purpose, in a spirit of collaboration, and always with resolute kindness. So thank you. And again, I look forward to continuing to know and work with you going forward. Thank you both so much for your dedicated service to ADEC. Okay. So I believe that we are next moving on to the results of the 2020 ADEC election. And here we acknowledge the hard work of the Leadership Recruitment and Development Committee. And so I'm happy to announce the following results. We have Peggy Whiting as president-elect, Worth Gilcrease as treasurer, Michelle Ramirez, a member of the board of directors, Becky Lomaka, also elected to the board of directors. We have Amy Tucci for the Leadership Recruitment and Development Committee, and Christy the edge of her name is marked off here, but I'm going to assume that it's Christy
Nosich.
Nosich, okay. I got chopped off there at the end. Christy Nosich, thank you, Isaiah. All right, so those are the election results, and I believe that this brings us then to the installation of new officers and board members. And so I now have the honor of installing those officers and board members that you've elected to serve and represent the association. I keep seeing comments coming up down below, and I keep wanting to make sure that nobody is telling me anything that I have to do. So if there's anything I have to do, Isaiah, just give me a shout out. All right.
I'll let you know, Phyllis.
Okay, let me know. Otherwise, it is my pleasure to install the new the people who you've elected to serve you this year. And so as I call your name, please say hello so that hopefully the camera will pick you out of the crowd. President is Rebecca Morse.
Hello.
Hello. That's President-elect Rebecca Morse. Hi, Rebecca. Vice President-elect Peggy Whiting.
The warmest welcome to everyone. We're so grateful that we're all together.
Thank you, Peggy. The newly appointed treasurer, Worth Gilchrist. Oh, Worth, you're muted.
Hello, everybody.
Don't think you can get away with it that easily, Worth. You can't just be muted for the next three.
Bill would hunt me down.
I know. All right, and newly elected board members, Michelle Ramirez and Becky.
Hello.
And Becky Lamaka. Okay.
Hi, everybody.
Did I get to everybody? All righty. So newly elected board members and officers. Are you ready? Make sure that you're all unmuted. Are you ready to take the ADEC oath of office?
Yes.
All right.
Yes.
Please raise your right hand and repeat after me. I accept the ADEC office to which I have been elected.
That I've been elected. That I have been elected.
I will perform the duties of that office to the best of my ability.
I will perform the duties
of that office
to the best of my ability.
In all my undertakings, I will strive for the good of ADEC.
In all my undertakings, I will strive for the good of ADEC.
I will uphold and enforce the association's bylaws.
I will uphold and enforce the association's bylaws
and promote the goals of ADEC.
And promote the goals of ADEC.
All of which I now affirm in the virtual presence of the members here assembled.
All of which I now affirm in the presence of the members here assembled.
On behalf of ADEC and through the powers invested in me, who knew, I do hereby install each of you into the office to which you were elected, and I charge you to be faithful and diligent in discharging the responsibilities of your office. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Thank you all. And I believe that with that, the time has come for me to turn this meeting over to Rebecca Morse.
Hello, thank you everyone. Phyllis, I didn't realize it was going to be a test of my short-term memory to complete that. So first and foremost, I just wanted to thank each and every one of you. Those of you who've served on the board, those of you who've served on the various committees, everyone at MHQ, Isaiah, for your endless patience and humor. And also a special shout out to Andy McNeil. He filled a special role this past year for 1 year service on the board. So thank you, Andy, for your enthusiasm and your innovation this past year. And then ultimately, I want to thank Phyllis for everything she has done, the compassion and the grace with which she's led this past year. Nobody knew going into it what this was going to be like. And you've just been remarkably insightful and conscientious in how you've handled everything and everyone, because these are real people that have been involved with this, and you've just been so careful and so kind, and I just thank you from the bottom of my heart for that. Now, usually at this point, the incoming president gives a funny gift and a nice gift to the outgoing president. She's going to have to wait for the funny one for in person, but the kind gift she has on standby to open. So Phyllis, if you will please, and feel free to unmute yourself.
I am unmuted. Okay.
There we go. Perfect.
All right, here we go. Okay, what do we have? Okay, it's Planet Phyllis Kosminski. It's
Well,
wow.
you deserve
Okay.
your
So
own planet.
this says, this is, okay, I will hold it up. I think that, I hope you can see this. It's pretty glorious, but it is a map of the night sky, the night sky, the night sky in Columbus, Ohio. May 2nd, 2020. So this is, I guess, the sky that I would have been seeing if I had been in Columbus, Ohio. Right, Rebecca?
It is. It's the constellation.
What's that?
It has the constellations, the stars, and the planets as they align tonight from Columbus, Ohio.
It's beautiful, and it will be a reminder for me always of a really wonderful year, of the chance that I've had to work with you, Rebecca. And I just want to make sure that you can see this. Okay, so these are my stars. And then let me see here. Rebecca, I'm sure that there were, I'm looking. Hold on, I don't want to find it after we're done. But, okay, I think.
It might be in the back of the plastic, so don't worry about it.
What's that? Oh,
In the back of the plastic.
okay. I don't see it right now, but I'm sure it's really personal anyway. And so you'll just have to tell me everything, all the good things that you said when we're on the phone. This is really, really, here I got the plastic off. It's really beautiful.
It basically just said that the stars aligned perfectly when you were elected president.
Oh,
They align as you graduate from your presidency.
oh, thank you. Thank you so much, Rebecca. You're going to be great.
So, well, Isaiah, is there anything else I need to do? Because right now I am standing in the way of people's breakfast, lunch, or sleep.
No, our business is concluded. Feel free to adjourn at your leisure.
Okay, so again, to each and every one of you, thank you. Also to those of you who've logged in this morning, thank you for your patience and your kindness as we had to deal with this novel experience of canceling the conference, but also for the kind emails that were sent. They were incredibly helpful and supportive. So with that, we adjourn, and I have no gavel, so peace be with you.
Thank you, everyone.